focus of this video is a big gnarly swim that I take in 30 to 40 knots just after the lighthouse. The purpose of the video is, number one, to remind beginners and intermediates just how flipping unforgiving Mother Millers can be. Two, how quickly conditions can change. And then thirdly, there are a couple of safety suggestions on my theme of small details can matter big time. Leaving the bay, I followed the group ahead of me, which was heading well left of the lighthouse, because at this stage there was actually a bit of an easterly wind. Overall, though, it looked as though the forecast was spot on, and at this stage I was looking forward to enjoying my best millers ever. Little did I know what was in store for me. There's rookie error number one. You look at my life jacket flapping around. I forgot to do the fasteners up. And given what happens later, I'm lucky that this wasn't an impediment. Those unfamiliar with the reverse millers, our put-in point is Fisher Beach, and our take-out point is the Miller's Slipway, which in this video is at the juncture of the end of the mountain in the distance, and where that meets the sea, so kind of between the nose of my boat and the lighthouse. At this stage my line is still looking pretty good, although in the next few frames after the lighthouse you'll see the westerly swells picking up and the wind beginning to whip across from right to left. This is where my trouble starts. You'll see that I get swiped across the nose by a couple of swells, and instead of continuing to paddle normally in order to maintain stability, I go into wallow mode, and inevitably that leads to trouble. The reason why I'm unable to right my boat at this stage is that the leash is wrapped around my leg, and at this stage I'm unaware of that, which is the first part of my trouble. So shortly there's footage of me attempting to undo my leg leash, but there was so much tension in the leash that it was actually very difficult to do so. We switch to the rear camera view shortly, which shows that besides having my legs in a tangle, I also had my knickers completely in a knot. For those not in favor of paddle leashes, this is where you'll note that I'm holding my paddle as I go under, but then, of course, unintentionally release it. About to take a good clap to the back of the head, so I've been thinking about perhaps I should revert to my highly fashionable bicycle helmet that I used to use with my GoPro mounted on top of that. So I don't really understand what happens next, but what I'm trying to do at this stage is to swim my ski around so that the nose is pointing left for my favored remount orientation, but I'm completely unsuccessful for two reasons. One is I'm unaware at this stage that I've got the leg leash wrapped around my leg. But secondly, there was so much force on the ski that I sincerely doubt I could have done it, because the wind speed was somewhere between 30 and 40 knots. Consequently, I'm rethinking my default tactic of swimming my nose around. I think I'm going to have to learn to mount from both sides. So this is where fear and dread begin to set in, realizing that I've got no chance of swimming my ski around in these conditions. I just decide to mount in a non-favored orientation anyway, and thank heavens, my first remount is successful, because I hate to think what would have happened if I'd gone over again. At the risk of stating the obvious, I think it's important to point out that psychologically there's a huge difference between a remount in a southeasterly that is blowing you onshore at 20 to 30 knots and a westerly at 30 to 40 knots that is blowing you offshore. That I use a green tie down as a boat leash, which is attached to my life jacket, and the reason for that is that it's flat, and here it's wrapped around my leg, but it doesn't cause me any maladjustment of my body positioning, whereas if I was using a regular coiled leash, I have no doubt that they would have been sufficient to imbalance me and tip me out again. Probably think this is a bit anal, but I'm also thinking of marking the right hand side of my paddle with some sort of fluorescent marker so that I can easily identify the correct orientation of my paddle in these circumstances. Whilst I did make it back to the slip lay without falling in again, I had serious doubts in my mind about whether I would make it. Lots of flashbacks to my rescue in Hurricane Alley over a year ago. So here, there's another mistake that I make due to remount-induced anxiety, lack of confidence, lack of stability. I didn't do what the experienced, more capable guys would, I imagine, do, which is to catch the swells in direction of movement, which is parallel to the coast, and then once on the swell with a bit of speed, you then surf right, whereas psychologically I just couldn't bring myself to head parallel to the coast. Last point is just to emphasize how quickly conditions can change. As we headed back in the Miller's taxi coming through Simonstown, we looked out over the Miller's Run area, and this area was almost completely flat. And the white horses had moved to a good 5 or 6 kilometers offshore. Unbelievable that the change had taken place so quickly.